has Sophie Cunningham been all game in the first half? Like, wait, where's Sophie Cunningham been all game? Are they like messing with Sophie Cunningham's minutes? Is this like kind of like punishment? I don't want to say it was, but it kind of feels like a little bit of, it kind of feels like minutes restricted.
There are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that. But I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone. I can't applaud her enough. This notion that you're hating on the trans community because you are not a proponent of them participating in female sports is utterly ridiculous. Sophie Cunningham said every word right on the money. There's no hate involved. There's only love we're talking about. But what happened to loving girls who are born biologically as girls? What about their rights? What about fairness associated to them?
The WNBA thought the controversy would disappear after the final buzzer. Instead, it only grew louder. One moment involving Sophie Cunningham has sparked an intense debate across the basketball world, with fans questioning whether the league is enforcing its rules consistently or whether one player has become the face of a much bigger issue. Supporters say Cunningham is simply playing with the toughness and passion that have always defined her career. Critics argue she crossed the line and deserved stronger punishment. But as new discussions spread across social media, sports talk shows, and podcasts, one question refused to go away. Was Sophie Cunningham simply being held accountable, or had she become an example in a league struggling to balance player safety, physical competition, and public perception? Tonight, we're breaking down the verified facts, the reactions from both sides, and why this controversy has become one of the most talked about stories of the WNBA season.
That same vein, investor with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that. You know, I don't know. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs. I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. And I think people are going to take it how they want to take it, but I've never even really said anything about that. And so when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports were protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really...
Long before her name dominated headlines, Sophie Cunningham had already built a reputation as one of the WNBA's most fearless competitors. From the moment she entered the league after a standout college career at Missouri, she became known for her relentless hustle, physical defense, and willingness to stand up for her teammates. Cunningham has never tried to be the quiet star. She embraces the emotional side of basketball, celebrating big plays with intensity and refusing to back down when games become heated. That competitive fire has earned her respect from teammates and coaches, but it has also made her one of the league's most polarizing figures. Every hard foul, every confrontation, and every emotional reaction seems to generate headlines, leaving fans divided between those who admire her toughness and those who believe she often pushes the limits of acceptable physical play. And as the spotlight on the WNBA continues to grow, every decision involving Cunningham is now examined more closely than ever before.
Sophie Cunningham just said what Simone Biles and Megan Rapinoe have refused to say. In an interview with ESPN, Cunningham blatantly said that she does not want biological men in women and girls sports. What Cunningham said is just common sense. But obviously, in female sports, this is considered incredibly courageous, because while Riley Gaines has fought tooth and nail along with other women and girls to keep their sports female, Serena Williams, Aja Wilson, Paige Beckers, Katie Ledecky, Coco Gauff, you name it, have been silent, or they've actually supported men and women's sports. So in a sports world full of Megan Rapinoes,
the turning point came during a nationally televised matchup that millions of basketball fans were already watching closely. Tensions were high from the opening tip, with every possession carrying playoff-level intensity. As the game became increasingly physical, one sequence involving Sophie Cunningham quickly stole the spotlight. Within minutes, clips of the play spread across X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, where fans began debating whether officials had made the right call. Some viewers argued that Cunningham's actions reflected the aggressive style of basketball that has always been part of the WNBA. Others believed the league needed to send a stronger message to discourage unnecessary physicality. Regardless of which side fans supported, one thing was undeniable. The conversation had moved far beyond a single play and had become another chapter in the growing debate over consistency, accountability, and player safety across the league.
Not be playing in women's sports. It's completely ludicrous that anyone could support that. It's even more ludicrous that you do have Sophie Cunningham, a female athlete herself, very accomplished in her own right, coming forth and speaking that truth that men shouldn't play in women's sports. We want to protect women and girls, and the backlash she is receiving from Democrats and left-wing figures across the country is astonishing. They are clearly very out of touch with the American public on this issue, which again is an 80-20 issue. It's common sense. It's rooted in basic biological fact that men should not be competing against women on playing fields across the country.
To understand why this moment exploded online, you have to look at the bigger picture. Throughout the season, fans had repeatedly questioned the consistency of WNBA officiating. Nearly every week, controversial calls or missed calls became trending topics. Supporters of several teams argued that similar plays often received completely different rulings depending on the players involved. The debate wasn't just about Sophie Cunningham. It also included discussions surrounding Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Breanna Stewart, and other high-profile stars whose games were constantly dissected by fans and analysts. With every nationally televised matchup, pressure on the league's officials continued to grow. By the time Cunningham became the center of attention, many fans had already lost confidence that identical situations were being judged the same way. That growing frustration created the perfect environment for another controversy to dominate headlines.
Love, and I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room, you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's...
As the replay continued circulating online, the focus quickly shifted away from the game itself and towards Sophie Cunningham. Within hours, sports media personalities, former players, and thousands of fans were offering completely different interpretations of the same moment. Some insisted that Cunningham was being unfairly singled out because of her aggressive playing style, arguing that similar physical plays happen throughout the league without generating the same level of outrage. Others believe the league had a responsibility to hold every player, regardless of reputation, accountable when the action crossed the line. What made this controversy so fascinating wasn't simply the play itself. It was how one incident became a reflection of a much larger conversation about fairness, consistency, and whether public perception now plays a bigger role than ever in shaping the WNBA's biggest headlines.
Cunningham is not some radical. She is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to female athletes speaking out about biological men in women's sports. Like right now, she's going viral for saying, I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in a sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. And then these journalists reporting on the WNBA started grilling her, trying to see if they could get her to walk it back, and she just stands her ground and goes, I said what I said. First of all, heck yeah for not backing down, which we all knew that she wouldn't because she's that way on the court too. She doesn't really care if she makes anybody angry. But I really do think, even though she is obviously uniquely bold on these sorts of issues, I really do think that the temperature is beginning to change, because biological men in women's sports is the clearest example of this ideology being taken too far. The clearest example of something that is so far detached from reality that you're going to have a hard time getting average, normal, everyday people to accept it. Public opinion data on this agrees. Back in 2023, 67% of people were opposed to biological men in women's sports. New York Times released data from last year. It is almost 80% of people that are opposed to that now. So the less than 20% of people who still think that this should be allowed.
What made the controversy even bigger was its connection to the ongoing conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark. Throughout the season, Clark had repeatedly been at the center of debates about physical play, officiating, and whether the league was doing enough to protect its biggest stars. Every hard screen, every disputed foul, and every missed whistle seemed to fuel another wave of discussion across social media. So when Sophie Cunningham became involved in another highly scrutinized moment, many fans immediately linked it to that broader narrative. Some praised Cunningham for standing up for her teammates and refusing to let opponents dictate the game's physicality. Others argued that emotional responses and unnecessary contact only intensified an already heated situation. Regardless of where opinions landed, the incident reinforced one undeniable reality. Almost every major WNBA controversy now extends far beyond the players directly involved. It has become part of a larger debate about the league's identity, its officiating standards, and how it manages the spotlight that comes with unprecedented attention. The truth is, the WNBA isn't just dealing with one controversial play, it's dealing with unprecedented attention. Television ratings have climbed, arenas are selling out, and millions of new fans are analyzing every possession like never before. With that growth comes intense scrutiny. Every officiating decision is replayed from multiple angles, every technical foul becomes a trending topic, and every physical confrontation sparks hours of debate online. In previous seasons, many of these moments might have disappeared after the final buzzer. Today, they dominate sports headlines for days. That reality has placed enormous pressure on league officials, who now face criticism from every direction whenever a close decision is made. As the league continues to grow, maintaining trust in its officiating has become just as important as the games themselves. As expected, public opinion split almost immediately. One side argued that Sophie Cunningham was being criticized simply because of her reputation. They pointed out that physical basketball has always been part of the sport and questioned why similar plays involving other players often receive far less attention. To them, Cunningham had become an easy target whenever controversy surfaced. On the other side were fans who believed reputation should never excuse dangerous or unnecessary contact. They argued that if the WNBA wants to protect its players and continue growing its audience, every incident must be judged by the same standard, regardless of who is involved. Neither side was willing to back down, and the debate quickly transformed from one controversial moment into a larger conversation about fairness, accountability, and the future direction of the league. As the discussion continued, sports media amplified every new development. Television analysts broke down the replay frame by frame. Podcasts debated whether the officials had handled the situation correctly. Former players offered different perspectives based on their own experiences competing in a physical league. Some emphasized that basketball has always been an emotional game where intensity sometimes leads to controversial moments. Others argued that the modern WNBA has a responsibility to protect its athletes while applying its rules consistently across every team and every superstar. The result was a media cycle that refused to move on. Instead of fading away after a few days, the controversy remained part of nearly every major conversation surrounding the league, keeping Sophie Cunningham's name firmly in the national spotlight. Despite the endless speculation online, it's important to separate emotion from evidence. The official record tells us what actions were reviewed, what decisions were made by league officials, and whether any discipline was announced. Beyond that, claims of hidden agendas or coordinated efforts remain exactly that, claims, not verified facts. What can be said with confidence is that the controversy exposed how deeply fans care about consistency. Whether they supported Sophie Cunningham or criticized her actions, most agreed on one point. The WNBA's credibility depends on clear, transparent officiating that applies equally to every player. As the league enters a new era of popularity, those expectations will only continue to grow, making every future decision even more significant than the last.